Hello, Gooner Network. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to be reviewing Arsenal's off-season work. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the first section of our new signings and rating how each player is going to impact the system that Mikel Arteta has built and whether or not they're a good signing. I think the two big ones that we need to talk about, of course, are Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko for a combined fee of about £80 million. I think this is an absolute steal. Let's start with Gabriel Jesus, where we were the most in need of a new striker. Last year, Alex Lacazette put up 6 goals. We need more from that. From that position, we need 15 goals to get where we want. Mikel Arteta has said that in order to win the title in the league, you need 90 to 100 goals, and we were way off the pace last year. I think Gabriel Jesus is going to immediately come in, and I think is certainly going to hit double digits, and I think he's going to be hitting somewhere between that 15 and 17 goal mark. In the Premier League, I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks 20 in all competitions. And I think importantly as well, he's going to chip in with a lot of assists. I think he's the sort of player, he offers a lot of dynamism to our front line because he is capable of dropping deeper, of coming into the midfield, playing like a false nine, which opens up space for our inside forwards of Gabriel Martinelli or Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side to drive inwards, to cut in onto their favored foot and occupy that space that Gabriel Jesus is vacating, as well as he also offers the ability to move forward, to make runs past the back line. I think we've already seen it in the way that he links up with Martin Odegaard. They look really good together. He makes forward lines really well. And for me, I'm really excited about this player and what he brings to Arsenal. We haven't had a player like him for a few years now. I think the last time we had someone like him was peak Aubameyang, and Auba really, the squad around Auba at the time wasn't very good. He was a one-man show kind of striker, and I don't think Jesus is that sort of player at all. He's coming in from his time at Manchester City. He obviously already knows Mikel Arteta. He knows the system that we want. He's already in the league, so there isn't that Premier League adaptation period. He does have to adapt to a new city, a new club, and those sorts of things. So there could be a few, obstacles in the beginning of the relationship, but he has set the ground alight in preseason. My favorite goal so far was the second goal that he had against Sevilla in the Emirates Cup. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a ball in from, I think it was Xhaka, it might have been Zinchenko, sends a cross in from deep, from about 40 yards out, closer to the sideline. And Jesus just makes a run in past through the back line into, right around that 6-yard box just in front of it. And he just wraps around it and puts it in the side net. Absolutely beautiful goal. And it's one of those things, it's not going to be goal of the season contender, but it just looks good. And he slid down in order to wrap around it, and he slides right back up into his stand-up. It's the sort of thing you watch football for. And then, of course, he went and he finished his hat-trick. And this is really exciting stuff in that he's already scoring hat-tricks for us. And Sevilla are a good side. They're playing in the Champions League this year, so there's a lot of good things to come from Gabriel Jesus, and I think he's going to offer quite a lot. And at a fee of £49 million, it's good business. I don't think that there's much out there that you could have got for cheaper. I think the Haaland is a bit of an anomaly because of his release clause. Look at Darwin Núñez, who I don't think he's as good of a player as Gabriel Jesus is, at least not right now. I think he has the potential, of course, to be good, and maybe Klopp works his magic and Darwin Núñez really sets the ground alight as well. But going for 80 mil, for us to get Gabriel Jesus for under 50 mil is really, really good business. Moving on, of course, to his partner coming from Man City is Alexander Zinchenko, who has also looked brilliant and is a really good signing. I think he is so important because he offers quality depth as well as starting talent all over the 11, especially that left side of the 11. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this this campaign, Mikel Arteta puts him in at right back just because we need to or something for whatever reason. Like, it wouldn't surprise me because he is that versatile and because Mikel Arteta likes that sort of quality in his players. But, of course, what we brought him in to do was to be left back or to be in central midfield, and I think he can also play in defensive midfield as well in the case that Thomas Partey is absent, and we have Kieran Tierney and Granit Xhaka both healthy. I think that we can play a midfield three of Granit Xhaka, of Alexander Zinchenko, and Martin Odegaard, and I don't think that we lose much. I think he is a very versatile and talented player all around, but I think what's really exciting is his mentality and what he brings to this dressing room. Everyone who's worked with him, all of his coaches, all of his staff and people that are around him talk really highly of his mentality, of his winning attitude, of his work ethic, of the sort of person that he is, and I'm really excited to bring that into the dressing room. I think he and Jesus both wanted to have bigger roles in the side. I think that they both have wanted to take that step up and be the big fish in a small pond, and I think they get that opportunity at Arsenal. They're joining a project where we're looking to win European silver, where we're looking to build title contenders, and I think there's a lot that these two bring, and I'm really excited for what we have done, and I think getting them for a combined 80 mil is absolute brilliance and very, very well done by Edu. I think, we were a little bit confused because the Zinchenko move, it was touted for the first couple weeks of the window and then it kind of lost steam. And I think that what might have happened there is Edu might have brought the price down a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but if that is the case and we've brought it down from, 40 million pounds or what have you to 30 mil, that's really good. Really, really good. That price for Alexander Zinchenko, brilliant all around. Moving on to, I think, our next most important signing, Fabio Vieira, of course, the second Vieira. Of course, he'll never replace Patrick Vieira, but, it's fun to make those comparisons. Coming in from Porto in Lisbon in Portugal, in Porto in Portugal, excuse me. Interesting player here. We don't really know too much about him. I personally haven't watched a lot of him and how he plays, but from what I can hear, from what I've heard, from what we can see in stats and highlights, he's very good on the ball. He's a very technical player. He plays in central midfield, and what a lot of people who watch Porto week in, week out have been saying about him is that over the last campaign, he really improved in his pressing and in his defensive work ethic, and I think that's really important for this Arsenal side. I don't think that Mikel Arteta wants anyone who isn't going to put in the work defensively, so I think that is very important, and I think this is a really underrated signing because going into this window, I think the most important piece, of course, was getting a new striker, but the second most important order of business for me was someone who can fill the void if Martin Odegaard is absent, because until now, we didn't have anyone who can do what he can do until we've now signed Fabio Vieira, and I'm really excited for that. I think that's really smart business. It's a bit pricey. It's a bit of risk involved. I think, 35 million roundabout. So there are some, it's a hefty price tag. There isn't much known about the player, but supposedly he works very hard and he's very good on the ball. He speaks Portuguese and it seems like he's settling in really well. It looks like Gabriel Martinelli has taken to him really well, which is interesting because I think Gabriel Martinelli has he has a lot of those intangibles that you can't teach in terms of his personality, in terms of his work ethic, his drive, and so I'm assuming that if they've taken to each other well, that Fabio Vieira has a similar attitude, which is good to see. You want that in a player. You want that sort of hunger, that sort of ambition. That's good. He has been injured, so we haven't gotten to see him in preseason yet, and that's always a worry. Injury concerns are always a worry for any Gooner out there, so you're right to be concerned about his price tag, about his injury record. However, it's looking like the injury isn't anything serious. He's going to be back in the first month or two of the campaign. I believe he's already in training, so good news there, and another solid signing. Of course, moving on to Marquinhos, who I think is our next best signing of the window. It has Edu written all over it. A Brazilian youngster, of course, a young Brazilian forward. Again, we don't really know anything about the player. We've seen him in 3-4 preseason appearances now, so that's all that we have to go on. But he's looked good. I think everyone, kind of like with Gabriel Martinelli, everyone was kind of expecting him to come in and immediately go out on loan. I don't think anyone expected him to come in and stay. At the moment, it's looking like he's going to be Bukayo Saka's deputy, especially if we don't bring in another forward, another versatile forward that it seems like we are looking for. I think he's going to be Bukayo Saka's deputy. He is a right winger who is left-footed, so he cuts in to take shots at goal, and I think that, we won't be losing too much of the system if we have to swap out Bukayo Saka for Marquinhos, which is good news. He doesn't play, he's 5'7", so he's shorter in stature, but he doesn't play in the way that you expect a typical short, crafty winger. For me, there are two sorts of players who take that right-hand side, that right wing, and are of shorter stature. You have your Messis and you have your Adama Traores, right? And I think that Marquinhos leans more to the Adama Traore in terms of play style. Obviously, I'm not comparing him to Lionel Messi. Obviously, I'm not comparing him to Adama. Well, I am comparing him a little bit to Adama Traore. I think in terms of play style, I think they're similar. I'm not necessarily saying he's as good or he's better than him or that he's not as good as him. I just think in terms of play style, from what we've seen so far, he's an absolute unit. He is a tank. He's very strong for his age and for his size. He moves well through people. He carries the ball well. I haven't really seen anything in terms of end product from him. But he's young. He's 19, so there's time for that to develop. It seems like he's also settling into the squad well. Again, another Portuguese speaker, a lot of Brazilians in the side. So I think this is, for £3 million from Santos, I believe. Or maybe from Corinthians, there's not too much negatives, too much risk around this signing, and I think it's been good business. Moving on to our last order of business then, of course, is Matt Turner, and I think that this is the weakest part of our transfer window so far, maybe with the exception of contract renewals, which we'll get into in a minute. But I'm a little bit confused about this. The news broke, of course, this morning that Bernd Leno has agreed. The deal to Fulham is complete for 2 million, I believe, 3 million to £3 million with 1 million optional add-ons based off of Premier League appearances this year. Another 2 million in add-ons if Fulham stay up, and another 2 million in add-ons after that if Fulham stay up again. So if Fulham stay up twice, we get 4 million in add-ons. And that's the Bernd Leno deal for a total of 8 million, with only 3 million guaranteed, with 1 million in Premier League appearances. So it looks like we're going to get him for 4 million, less than we bought Matt Turner for. And for that's what has me a little bit confused. I know that we're saving money in the wage bill, of course. I think we're saving about 5 mil in Leno's wages. So if you add that into the 3 mil, that covers Matt Turner's transfer fee. I don't think he fits the style. So far, it doesn't look like he seems to be comfortable playing out the back, playing with his feet. His distribution is, nothing above average. I think in terms of shot stopping, he's looked fine, but he hasn't looked entirely confident. He hasn't looked entirely confident in terms of controlling the box, claiming crosses, that sort of thing. So I'm not particularly excited about this signing. I'm happy to have an American in the Gunner squad. I think that's exciting, and he's looked good for the national team whenever he's played. There's that infamous game in the Minnesota Cold that he played in and got frostbite in, and he wanted to stay with the Revolution, of course, because he wanted to finish the season with them. So I think there's good things to be had about his mentality and his ethic, and I think those are important traits, especially in a peripheral squad figure. He's probably going to get appearances in the cup and in the cups and in the Europa League this year. So of course that's exciting, or an opportunity at least to see how he does. But all in all, I think this is the least impressive work that we have done so far this window. So I think to give everybody a rating out of 10, Gabriel Jesus, 10 out of 10. Alexander Zinchenko, 10 out of 10. Gabriel Jesus is probably the best signing of the transfer window so far. There's a few other ones that are really good. Raheem Sterling, Chelsea, I think fills a need. Of course, Erling Haaland, I think you just kind of have to discount him because, yeah, they've signed a generational talent. But Gabriel Jesus, really good signing, 10 out of 10. Our most important need, we got one of the best strikers in Europe, undervalued, 10 out of 10. Alexander Zinchenko, of course, another 10 out of 10. Extremely versatile player, fills positions of need in the midfield and at left back at a high level, at an elite level. He's probably just under world class for me. Brings in really good mentality and work ethic and attitude to this dressing room. 10 out of 10 signing for me. Fabio Vieira, 7 out of 10. I think he loses points because of the risk factor of he's got a bit of a heavier price tag. He costs more than Alexander Zinchenko did. You have to remember that. So, more expensive than Zinchenko. He's coming in. There's, question marks about his ability, question marks about his injury record. I think that these are overplayed right now just because we haven't had the opportunity to watch him. He looks to be a good player. I think he's going to fit the system well. This gives him an opportunity. There isn't pressure on him to perform immediately. Like, he's not coming in to displace Martin Odegaard. He's coming in more to provide competition, be a deputy, potentially challenge Granit Xhaka for that other midfield spot. I'm curious to see. I think the biggest question mark for me is, can Mikel Arteta fit both Fabio Vieira and Martin Odegaard into the starting 11 and make it work? We'll see. I give him a 7 out of 10 because I am optimistic. I think he was the second most important position of need. We went out and we replaced it. I think I was very concerned because if Martin Odegaard went down, if Martin Odegaard missed any extended period of time, we were screwed without him. And so I think for that reason, this signing gets a 7 out of 10. Marquinhos, 7 out of 10. Young Brazilian forward, very low risk, has looked good and impressive so far. So there's not really anything negative to say. It's just not a particularly exciting signing, which is fine. And not every signing needs to be a blockbuster Raheem Sterling or a blockbuster Gabriel Jesus or blockbuster Erling Haaland. Not every signing needs to be that. So I'm content with the business that we've done for Marquinhos, and hopefully, if he doesn't work out, I would bet that we can get a pretty hefty profit if we do need to flip him in the future, if we do need to move him on. So, low risk signing, Brazilian winger, well done, Edu. The Matt Turner signing is a 4 out of 10 for me. I would give it a 6 out of 10, except for two reasons. I think we lose a point because there's question marks regarding his actual abilities to play the system, about his distribution, and as well because we moved Bernd Leno on for less than we bought Matt Turner, which I really was expecting us to move Bernd Leno on for around that £10 million range. The Matt Turner signing loses a point for me, so 4 out of 10 for me. I don't want to harp on the player because I'm excited to have an American, and I think that he is, a fine shot stopper. But 4 out of 10 for me. Moving on to section number 2, we're going to be talking about our outgoings this summer. So this is going to be players like Nuno Tavares, Matteo Guendouzi, Alex Lacazette. So starting with, I think the biggest outgoing is Nuno Tavares, of course, on loan to Olympique Marseille in the south of France. All in all, I think this is good business for him. I think it's a good move, a good opportunity for the player to possibly develop in what has, for the past couple of years, been an extremely nurturing environment. I mean, they just turned out Ligue 1's Young Player of the Year. Boubacar Kamara got his big move to Aston Villa, and of course Matteo Guendouzi looks really good for them. They also have other players like Maxime Lopez who are impressing for the side. I think it's a good opportunity for him. We know that the Atalanta move fell through. I think that also would have been a good spot. They have been doing really good things with their wing backs and developing young wing backs. So I think that would have been an interesting opportunity for him. He's completely wildly inconsistent. There's no question about his physical capabilities. He's extremely fast. He's an electric player. He's incredibly strong for his size as well. He really does dominate a wing in that regard. But these attributes, these positives about his game, do not make up for the deficiencies in terms of his defensive positioning, his defensive awareness, his defensive intelligence. And those are areas he really has a lot of work to do and a big opportunity to improve upon, and we really need to see that before we can rely on him in the Premier League, especially because we know that Kieran Tierney is going to miss time with injury every single year. So I think he's not quite good enough to be Arsenal's backup just yet. I do have high hopes for the player, but he needs to continue to develop. And I think the move to Marseille is a good spot for him. You know, he's playing in Europa League football. It's a big club with a lot of history, with a lot of pressure going on. It's a nice place to play. They did lose their head coach this year, so there are question marks as to whether or not they can continue to build upon the success that they had as a side last year. But regardless, I think it's a good move for him. The next outgoing I want to talk about is Matteo Guendouzi. Not much to say here. The obligation to buy for 10 mil to Olympique Marseille, we've known about this. It's just been finalized. Alex Lacazette is the next one I want to talk about, moving on a free transfer to Olympique Lyon. You know, I think it's hard to quantify Alex Lacazette's Arsenal career because he came in really with a lot of expectations. When we bought him from Lyon, he was kind of the complete package. He was finishing goals really well in France, and he was doing everything that you want from a center forward. He looked to be that modern center forward, and he just couldn't string it together for us. You know, I think part of it is his quickness. It's just not up to snuff. I think he had struggles with confidence. I think he came to us during a time in which we could no longer produce chances for him, and therefore we were stuck relying on him to create chances as well as relying on him to finish chances, and we just couldn't have a player who could do both. And I think that he just never really caught on here, and it's kind of a shame because I think a lot of us really do like the guy. Like, he's been a consummate professional through thick and thin. He's been at the club during its worst time, and he's been nothing but professional for us, and he's been a role model and a leader for these younger players, not necessarily in his on the pitch performances, but in how to act when the coach calls on you, when the manager picks you. You know, he's gone through long periods of not playing to then be thrust into the starting lineup in a big game, and he's performed, and he's looked good, so looked solid. So I have a lot of nice things to say about Lacazette, and I think the fact that we are upgrading from him to Gabriel Jesus is good business, and I think that it makes this signing a little bit more sweeter than it is, this free transfer a little bit sweeter than it is bittersweet, which is good to see. You know, we are upgrading, we are moving on from the player. It's been 5 years now. So it's been a long time, a half decade for us of service. So yeah, I wish him nothing but the best in France, and I hope that he has, you know, gets everything that he wants in the rest of his career. You know, so yeah, nothing but nice things to say about Lacazette. I think moving on to the next player I'm going to talk about, we have Dan Ballard and Harry Clark. Harry Clark on loan to Stoke, and Dan Ballard on a £2 million move to Sunderland. Not really much to say about either of these. Neither of them look like they're challenging for first-team football at the current moment in this current climate. I think we've got a lot of centre-backs. Saliba, Gabriel, Ben White, Tomiyasu can play there. And then, of course, Rob Holding on the bench. And we're trying to move on. Pablo Mari, links with him to Udinese have materialized in the last 24 hours. So I just don't think there's room for these players. The Ballard fee, it's pocket change, really. You know, how we can put it towards the Turner fee and say that that's what it goes towards. So, yep, not much really to talk about in terms of those two. And then I wanted to briefly touch on Austin Trusty, who of course was the player that we brought in from Stan Kroenke's MLS affiliate side, the Colorado Rapids. Trusty doesn't look particularly exciting. I think it was even announced that this move was to facilitate future business between the MLS and European sides, and I think that's good for American football, for the men's national team. We do need defenders, especially central defenders. Trusty is 6'3". I'm not sure that he has U.S. men's national team potential in him, but time will tell. Hopefully playing in English football can develop him. He's going on loan to Birmingham, who are going to be fighting relegation in the championship, so hopefully he gets minutes. Hopefully he can come back stronger because of a relegation fight. It could easily turn toxic as well. And we'll see. I think if we're going to give these ratings, I think the Nuno loan gets an 8 out of 10 simply because it's a good spot for him. He's a player that is surplus to requirements at the moment, and it's a spot where he can develop. The Alex Lacazette free transfer is a 7 out of 10 solely because we chose not to re-sign him and we went and upgraded with Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah, who I think are both better players now than Lacazette was last year, or Lacazette is currently. The Harry Clark and Austin Trusty and Daniel Ballard moves all get 6 out of 10s for me. I think I'm going to give the Trusty move a 5 out of 10 simply because I'm concerned about him moving to Birmingham and then being in a relegation battle and then developing a toxic atmosphere that might hamper his development. Moving on to the next section, I want to talk about our extensions, which I think has been good business so far. We've re-signed Eddie Nketiah and Mo Elneny. The Nketiah signing, of course, was a bit high profile and it was a bit unexpected. I think a lot of us thought he was going to leave the club, and then we signed him on. We extended him, and for me personally, I was kind of against this move at the time. I thought he hit a purple patch at the end of last year, and I'm still not entirely convinced. His statistics, his underlying numbers are not great. That being said, he has looked a different player in preseason. He's looked really good. He's obviously bulked up a bit. He's stronger. He's kept his pace, his quickness, his off-the-ball movement, his pressing has always been a strength. That's something he's always been good at, and it looks like he's continuing that. His on the ball, in terms of his link-up play, has improved, and his finishing looks like it's improved from what we can see so far. He's picking up goals here and there, and I think that this could potentially be a really good extension for us and for the club. And you like to see someone from Haaland, especially someone who's made that move over from Chelsea. You like to see someone like that succeed. And so nothing but the best for Eddie Nketiah, and hopefully we can continue to get the best out of him and show that we are the best place for him to develop his career. I think what's next for him is to become either win silverware, become an England international, which is going to be hard in this deep England lineup. Mohamed Elneny, of course, earned his contract extension. Not much more to say about it than that. There were a few people who were against this move. I think he's shown that he's good enough to be our 4th or 5th choice midfielder. I think Sambi Lokonga is ahead of him in the pecking order. I think Alexander Zinchenko, I'm definitely positive Alexander Zinchenko is ahead of him in the pecking order, and he's good energy and good attitude to have around the squad, around the dressing room. I don't really have any complaints about re-signing him. We know where he's limited. We know that he's a good defender, but in terms of moving the ball forward and being progressive, getting the ball from the defensive third into the middle third, into the final third, that's where his shortcomings are. We know that. We know what sort of player we're going to get. He's a very safe signing, and I just think that there's no one on the market who's going to be cheaper in terms of wages who can upgrade Elneny right now. So I think that it's good business for us. I'm not excited by it, but yeah. I'm going to give the Eddie Nketiah an 8 out of 10 and the Mohamed Elneny a 7 out of 10 strictly because, good business. Yeah, so we've got a few extensions in the works, and I think if we get 2 of these, or even the big one, I think that this will be a 10 out of 10 window from Edu so far. I'm talking, of course, about Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, and William Saliba, who are all in negotiations or seem to be entering negotiations for a contract extension. Of course, the big one is Bukayo Saka, and my word, does every single Gooner want this kid to extend. If you enjoy football, you like this kid. He is bloody brilliant with the ball at his feet. He works hard, he is athletic, he's strong, he's quick, he's added finishing to his game, he's intelligent, he speaks well, he moves well, he puts in the defensive work. There isn't really a weakness in his game besides his his weak-footed finishing. I think it's the only area left for him to really improve, to take that up to an elite level. I think he is elite in every other area and knocking on the door of world class, and that's attracting attention from big names like Man City, like Liverpool, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid. These are all clubs that are coming after our star boy, and honestly, keep your hands off. He's ours. I think that he wants to resign. I think he wants to buy in. He just wants Champions League football, and I think that we can give it to him this year, and I think that we can show that this is a side to build around Bukayo Saka, and he can be one of the jewels in the crown. Nothing but good things to say about this player, and I hope that we can continue in the future. Edu can convince him to lock this one down for the next 5 years. Gabriel Martinelli, I think, is the closest to re-signing of these three. I think all three of them have 2 years left on their contract, and I think Gabriel Martinelli is the closest. He said in the past that he wants to spend his entire career at Arsenal, and that's great. We all, like, every single fan, every single supporter wants to hear that sort of thing. That's fantastic. So I think that it'll only be a matter of time. I'm not sure that we get it done before the window closes, but if we do, fantastic. I think that, we're already at a 9 out of 10. I think if we bring in another player, if we sign 2 of these players to extensions, 10 out of 10 window for me, especially if we get Bukayo Saka to sign an extension, 10 out of 10 window for me. And I think Gabriel Martinelli, it's sooner rather than later with this one. William Saliba, of course, is the question mark. I think there have been rumblings that we're moving towards positive talks for him, and I think that we've given him this role right now. Looks like he's going to be starting against Crystal Palace, and I think he's earned it. I think he has. I think the time away, the sacrifices that he has made for the club in terms of, we didn't let him play against PSG when Saint Etienne were in the cup final. Saint Etienne are now relegated, and we didn't let him play in that cup final during the COVID season. And we brought him back, and then we didn't even register him for the squads, for the playing squads, and then we loaned him out to Nice, and then we loaned him out to Marseille. He has earned his starting place, for at least for the Crystal Palace match. I think he looks so good. I don't want to put pressure on the player, but he keeps getting compared to Virgil van Dijk, and I think it's mostly because they just have similar styles of play. There doesn't seem to be a weakness to his game. He's big, he's 6'3", he has a strong frame, he is filled out, he looks like a man now, he is strong, he's quick, he's pacey. I mean, he was keeping pace with Timo Werner in this preseason match in Orlando against Chelsea and taking the ball off of him. In one-on-one defending, you're putting your money on Saliba. I mean, he's taking the ball off of players like Mbappe, like Messi, like Neymar, like Timo Werner. He's taking the ball off of big name, good, talented players, some of Europe's best, and he's doing it very well. So I think in terms of one-on-one defending, he's looked very solid. He looked like just confident, calm, composed. Where I personally have concerns about his game is in his distribution. His statistics and the way he was last year for Marseille are very good. Moving the ball forward, he is a good passer of the ball, statistically speaking, and last year for Marseille, he was impressive. I have yet to see that from him this preseason. Others have said that he's looked good. I think that's wishful thinking. I think there are moments where he has looked unconfident moving the ball forward. And it's not so much that he's looked unconfident on the ball. It's that, when we're passing it around the back, in that donut of death, that U-shape thing that we have become so familiar in terms of moving the ball through the back line, he looks like, instead of him being the one who wants to break the lines, who wants to move the ball forward, who wants to carry the ball forward. He looks more keen to shift it to Ben White or to shift it to Gabriel, and let them take on the progressive responsibilities. And I think that's okay for now. I think it's important. For me, he's a player who looks like he really relies a lot on confidence. I think he's a very sensitive player. It seems like he's lost both of his parents in his short lifetime. He's only 20 years old, so that's a tough thing for anyone to go through, let alone a 20-year-old kid who's moving to a new league, a new city. I think it's important that he settles in before he starts taking on these risks and before he starts trying to spray and pray with his passing. So I don't have issue with him being a little bit more conservative while he finds his feet in the most difficult league in the world. I have no issues with that. That being said, we're talking about extending him. There have been Arsenal, clearly, this is a player Arsenal. Every single club in the world wants this player right now. Liverpool, City, Real, Barcelona, every single player, Chelsea, every single club in the world wants this player right now, or would be happy to have him, for the right price, of course. Like, I'm not saying people are going to go and start shelling out 100 mil or 70 mil or even 50 mil for him. I'm not sure what price Arsenal would accept for this player. We bought him for £27 million. You think we could go and get double that right now, 54 million? I don't think, based off of what he's shown, League One's Player of the Year, brilliant in preseason. I don't think that 54 million pounds is unreasonable to ask for. I don't think anybody's going to be willing to pay that. I think Chelsea would be the only place that would be considering that, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that if we can lock him down, I think that would be great business, because this kid looks good in every aspect, and I'm really, really excited for his career. Even if it isn't with Arsenal, I'm really excited to see how this guy changes the game. I think he's the heir apparent to Virgil van Dijk as the best center back in the world. I think he has that potential. I don't want to put all that pressure on the player, but I think he has that potential to be that good. He's, people talk about the term Rolls Royce. He is a Rolls Royce of a player. There's nothing about him that is underwhelming. Hopefully we can lock him down. There are rumblings that this is moving in the right direction, and I hope that early days we get him a few appearances in the Premier League, and we can lock him down to a 5-year contract or 4-year contract. Moving on to the next section, I want to talk about the transfers that we still need to get done at right wing and centre mid. I think we're more likely to move for a forward that plays this right wing spot, who plays this deputy or competition for Bukayo Saka, simply because I don't think this is the year that you upgrade Granit Xhaka. I think that we have a deputy for Thomas Partey in Mohamed El-Nani. And signing Alexander Zinchenko is depth in the midfield. I don't think that we go and we upgrade Granit Xhaka this year, because I don't think the right player is available for him at the right price this year. I think if we do sign a forward, we've missed out on Rafinha. He's gone to Barcelona. I think Edu came out in an interview a few weeks ago saying that the talks with Deco, with his agent, were entirely, is this player available? No, it looks like he's going to Barcelona. Okay, well, let me know if anything changes. If anything changes, would he be interested in Arsenal? He'd be interested. Okay, let me know if anything changes. I think that's probably the extent. If we are to believe Edu, that's the extent of Arsenal's talks with Rafinha, with Leeds for Rafinha. Maybe there were some talks about potential fees for him, negotiating with the club in the event that he did change his mind from Barcelona. However, that we've missed out on that player. And so now I'm not sure who we would be looking at. There have been rumblings about Jared Bowen. I think that's going to break the bank. I think that's 70, 80 mil, and I just don't think that player is worth 70, 80 mil, at least not at this time with what this squad already has. I think that's not 70, 80 mil that's wisely spent. So I'm not sure who we go and get for a right winger, but I think that's the more likely of the two potential positions for us to bring in is that right wing spot. Probably a right winger who can play in multiple different positions, maybe also play in the forward line, maybe, or in the center forward spot, maybe someone who can also play off the left. We'll see. It could also be that we enlist Marquinhos as the deputy to Bukayo Saka, which I'm not entirely against at the moment. So we'll see. Center mid, I think that we have a few more options, although I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think this is the summer you upgrade Granit Xhaka. Over the last 12 months, Granit Xhaka was our best midfielder. Simple as. He was very solid. I think this is the best Granit Xhaka that Granit Xhaka has ever been, besides maybe playing in the Swiss national shirt. He's been very, very good over the past year. He's been complete, and I think a large part of this is because we have moved him further up the pitch, away from our own goal, so that when he does make mistakes, they are less critical. They are less. He's less likely to concede a goal making these mistakes, and so I think that that's done wonders for him. He's playing also with a lot of the game in front of him. He's playing kind of in the middle third, shifting into the final third, making late runs into the box, and I think that's really good for him. I think it suits him well. I think he's linking up with the players around him well. He is a good head in the dressing room. By all accounts, he's the captain without the captain's band. And that's fine, you know, that's good. We need that sort of attitude, that sort of leadership in this young side. So I've got really nothing negative to say about Granit Xhaka right now. I don't think that Yuri Tielemans is an upgrade on him. I think that's why we haven't signed him yet, is because he's available for 25 million and we haven't gone and got him. I think it's because he isn't an upgrade on Granit Xhaka, at least not at the moment. I don't think that he is, and you know, maybe he proves us wrong this year, and then we go out and we get him on a free next summer. That I'm not convinced of Yuri Tielemans. I think the other names floating around that we've been linked with, you have your Ruben Neves, your Lucas Paquetá, and your Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. You know, I think Sergej Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio and Lucas Paquetá at Olympique Lyon are interesting players, but they're going to break the bank. They're going to be at least 60 mil, probably both of them. So that's very expensive. They have to acclimatize to the Premier League. I just think that there's risks associated with signings that are that expensive, and you know, I'm just not sure they're the right player for us to upgrade Granit Xhaka right now. Ruben Neves, again, you know, I think he's right around Granit Xhaka's skill level, but Yuri Tielemans is going to be 10-15 million pounds cheaper. So why go buy Ruben Neves when Yuri Tielemans is going to be cheaper? You know, so I'm just not convinced that the right player is available. There's a few options that I think would be good deputies for Thomas Partey, and I think if we do sign a midfielder, that's the position that it will be. It will be a deputy for Thomas Partey. The names that stand out are Amadou Onana from Lille, the 22-year-old, and Mikel Merino, the 26-year-old from Real Sociedad. I think both players are defensive-minded first. Onana, I don't think offers much else outside of being a defensive stalwart. He's going to win balls in the air. He's going to occupy that single pivot role. He's comfortable on the ball, but he doesn't really progress it forward that well. So I think you would be relying on players like Ben White or Alexander Zinchenko, Kieran Tierney, Granit Xhaka to move the ball, or Martin Odegaard to move the ball forward rather than him. You know, take that as you will. He is 6'4", so that's interesting, and he's young, so there's a lot of room for development, a lot of room for growth, and he wouldn't be too expensive. I think you get him for somewhere between 20 and 30 million pounds. So you know, that's an option, I think, in terms of deputy. I really wanted us to move in for Cheick Doucouré. Palace beat us to it. Maybe if we don't sign a deputy, we go and sign Cheick Doucouré next year from Crystal Palace. I think that's really good business. He's a solid all-around player. I think he's the best option in that age range, in that profile that isn't named Aurelien Tchouameni. So yeah, he's a good player. But we've missed out on him. Miguel Merino comes from Real Sociedad, which is, of course, one of the biggest clubs in Spain that isn't part of the big three, that isn't part of the sides that have won 21st century La Liga titles. You know, he's a good player, an interesting player, a solid player. I think he offers dynamics in terms of his ball progression as well as defensive work rate. He is a bit, he's big. He's 6'1", I believe. So he is a presence in the midfield. He can occupy that single pivot role, and I think he would be good business. He's got a £70 million release clause, so if Sociedad were to demand that release clause in its entirety, he's going to be an expensive player. I think if you can get him, Sociedad did not have the best of years. I think if you can get him for 30-40 mil, it's good. It's a good buy. Other names on the list would be, of course, Guido Rodriguez, and Maxime Lopez are potential options that we've been linked with, as well as Fabian Ruiz, who's more of that shuttling 8 from Napoli. So these are other options that we might consider if we do move for a midfielder, just names to keep your eyes on, and they might move in general this transfer window as well. There's still a few weeks left, so we'll see. Yeah, the last thing that I want to talk about today is how the actual preseason went, is how the games went, and they couldn't have gone better. We were electric, putting up goals left and right. We couldn't we couldn't stop scoring. 5-3 to Nuremberg, 2-0 to Everton, 3-1 to Orlando City, and 4-0 to Chelsea, capped off with a 6-0 thrashing of Sevilla. We did lose 1-0, I think, to Brentford in a behind closed doors friendly. Supposedly, the run of play went all to us. We were the dominant team. We just got unlucky, and none of our first teamers played. None of our starters played. So, I'm not too concerned about that performance. It's the only mar on our otherwise perfect preseason, so that's disappointing. But yeah, we looked solid throughout. I'm so excited to see what this team can do with an actual center forward. There is so much fluidity, pace, technique in this attack. There's a lot of really good things to be excited about in this Arsenal side. I'm struggling to find weaknesses in this side at the moment. I think the most obvious weakness is that we've got a lot of youth, but we also have star players in Alexander Zinchenko, in Thomas Partey, and in Gabriel Jesus, of course, who are older, who are in their prime years, who have been there, who have done that, who have won important things. So, I don't think that there's, our young players, they're a little bit more blooded. They've got a little bit more youth, or a little bit more experience, senior experience to them now. So there's a lot to be excited about for this Arsenal side. Our important players stepped up. Gabriel Jesus has looked utterly brilliant. Zinchenko has looked good. Eddie Nketiah has looked good. Bukayo Saka has looked good. Gabby Martinelli has looked good. Eddie Nketiah has looked good. These are all players who have been extremely solid for us. And then, of course, Martin Odegaard goes and gets the official announcement that he is the new captain of Arsenal Football Club. I think this is great business, a great move for the player. I think it was really, when I remember about 12 months ago, about this time last year, maybe a few months into the season when we had started picking things up, someone asked me who I thought for future captains were, and I listed the usual of Kieran Tierney, Gabriel, of course. And then Martin Odegaard was another name that I threw out. And I actually was, thinking it would be Odegaard, but, Tierney at the time was the hot pick, the trendy pick. And they were like, Odegaard? Really? Yeah, he's captain for the national team. He is an absolute leader. He's absolute class. He's an enjoyable, fun player to watch. Just tricks all over the pitch. He's really, really good. Presses with a lot of intensity. He works hard. He's Mikel Arteta's lieutenant out there on the field. He takes instructions in Spanish and he boxes them out and gives orders and organizes the side. He is a leader through and through, and I think he's a great announcement as captain of this side. I think we should give vice captaincies to Kieran Tierney, to Bukayo Saka, and to Granit Xhaka. I think that they are our next leaders in the team right now. And I think that Alexander Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus and Aaron Ramsdale and Gabriel and Ben White, these are all leaders as well. I just think that Saka, Tierney, and Xhaka have earned their vice captaincy roles. I think that's what we should do. I don't think that there will be any announcement about vice captaincy, but that's more of a me thing. Me personally, I like to have that leadership group, and I think that leadership group that came under Emery, and I think while Emery had his issues regarding the captaincy, I think that having a leadership group is important, and I think that those 4 players can be relied upon. I think the announcement of Odegaard as captain is great, and I think it's going to push him to thrive. I think that he's the sort of player who thrives under that added responsibility. The last thing I want to talk about is young players who looked good in preseason. Of course, you have there are 3 names I think that stand out. You have like Eddie Nketiah, and you've got Bukayo Saka, who are young players. Eddie Nketiah's not that young anymore. But players who haven't quite broken into the starting lineup yet, who were impressive in these matches. Albert Sambi-Lokonga, Marquinhos, and Ruel Walters. Let's start with Sambi. He had ups and downs to his first season in Arsenal, in the red and white in North London. I think he started quite well. He came in and he played in the opening stages of last year, and he got a good run of form, got a good run of games in, and then he was taken out of the side. We brought in Martin Odegaard, brought in Granit Xhaka, and Thomas Partey when everybody was healthy and fit and ready, and then there wasn't a place for Sambi, and we brought him out the side, and he just never looked good again playing for us. I think it was against Brighton or Palace, one of them that we lost in the end, those 3 in a row. It was one of them where he played and he just looked lost in the midfield. I think that he showed a lot of Anderlecht. He was captain of Anderlecht at age 20, so that's a really big thing. This is the Champions League, biggest club in Belgium, and he was captain of them at age 20, scoring goals in the Champions League. He was really solid, starting week in, week out. He's a player with a very high ceiling. We only bought him for £17 million. So I think he could be a really good player, and he looked solid in this preseason. He was playing a bit further forward. So I think we're going to be looking for him to take a step up in the Europa League games this year. I think there's an opportunity for him to go out into the group stages, and even, potentially the later stages of the competition as well, and impress and grab the game and grab these opportunities and really impress and look good. I think there is opportunity and room for him to do that, and I hope that he does. Marquinhos, of course, we've already talked a little bit about him, so I don't want to go on too much more. We don't know too much about him, but he's looked solid. And I think he's another player that he could look good as deputy in these Europa League stages, Europa League games, playing on that right-hand wing. We'll see. The last player that I want to end this on is Ruel Walters, who, there really wasn't too much any noise about him. He was impressing in the under-18s last year. People were saying, this kid looks good. But the names coming out of Haaland right now are Charlie Patino, Miguel Aziz, Marcelo Flores. There are other names coming out of Haaland that are, the bigger names, the more impressive sides, the higher profile players. We did lose out on Hutchinson. He's gone to Chelsea, who's another higher profile player. Ruel Walters looked good in this preseason. He played against Everton. I saw him in person, and he was the impressive player on the pitch besides Eddie Nketiah. He's looked solid. I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't get to see him against Chelsea, because that would have been his opportunity against, actually, good players. But that being said, we didn't give him the chance to embarrass himself or lose confidence. And he's, every single time he's played for the senior side now, which is only 3 appearances in preseason, hasn't made a competitive debut yet. He's looked good, and that's important for an 18-year-old. And I'm curious to see whether he gets minutes in the Europa League this year. I don't think that he will. I think he's going to continue to develop in the under-23s or potentially go out on loan. But he looked solid. I think this would be an interesting signing for me for a championship side that's in need of a defender, because he can play anywhere across the back line. He's 6 foot. So he can play left back, which is where he was making appearances for us in this preseason, or he can play center half, and he's also made appearances on the right as well, and he's supposedly rather two-footed. I don't think he's quite Santi Cazorla levels of two-footed, but supposedly he's two-footed. I think he's an exciting player, which is good to have this sort of player who can come out of Haaland, because Haaland hasn't been producing defensive talents, and that's not the end of the world. But now we have one in the wings, and I'm not going to sit there and say he's the next Van Dijk or the next Reece James. No, I'm not even going to argue that. But no, he looked good. He looked good in this preseason. I wanted to give him his plaudits for that, and hopefully the player continues to develop for us. So yeah, that is going to wrap everything up, guys. Thank you for joining. I'm really excited. I think that there is millions of reasons to be excited about Arsenal this campaign, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do. And I'll see you all on Friday when we have Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. Come on, you Gunners.